great evening to ya. It's your girl Key. How are ya? How does it find you? I'm going to open this door because we always like a little bit of breeze. It's just a quick one. Going live before I go home with the ambition to have a little bit of a conversation about loneliness. Loneliness is one of those areas that we often don't like to talk about. However, as we all know, it can have a profound impact on the quality of our lives. So it's good that we talk about loneliness. You know, for some of us, it may result in us staying in certain situations that we know are not great for us, yet we fear being alone. And because we fear being alone, we end up staying and can, let's face it, sell ourselves short. So I think one of the issues around loneliness is, for some of us, not all of us, but some of us are absolutely petrified of being alone. So because loneliness scares us, we can often opt to stay into situations that we know is not good for us. Yeah. And when we opt to stay in situations that are not good for us. That has a consequence. It has a consequence on our well-being. It has a consequence because what we are ultimately saying is that we don't want to be alone because we fear being with ourselves. And so for many of my singletons out there, I want to say well done, congratulations, and big up to you, because there is so much pressure and criticism of people who are still, oh, you're still single, or you're still by yourself, or you ain't found somebody to pick you up yet. Well, actually, you know, the challenge with that is that often relationships are sold to us as if there's some sort of, as if everybody in relationships are happy. Now, we all know many people, we can all think of many people who are far from happy in their intimate relationships. So let's be real about that. Not everybody in intimate relationships is happy. And we also know that you can well be content in your intimate relationship, but you can still experience loneliness. And so one of the things that we can often do when we're uncomfortable with loneliness is to get very busy and get distracted. And that is just one way of coping with loneliness. You know, we can get really busy and we can get distracted. However, you need to be careful about that, because if you fear being alone, then it may well be that you're highly likely to tolerate nonsense from somebody because you're scared of being with yourself. It's your girl Key here, and you know I'm here to tell you the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes it's in our best interest to learn to be with ourselves. It's good for the spirit and it's good for the soul. And I tell you why it's good to embrace loneliness at times, because it means that we are not fearful of being alone. That actually, say, for example, relationships come to an end. Whilst it's only natural that we're going to regret, you know, there's going to be sadness, there's going to be loss. Actually, if you're not petrified with being alone, it can be incredibly helpful for you. So if you've got any questions around loneliness, if you're battling, I know I've been struggling with loneliness at the moment. And one of the ways that I deal with loneliness is by being vocal about it. It's what I'll do is I'll make it a part of my work. It's one of the reasons why I'm having this discussion, because it's helpful to talk about these situations so that it doesn't wreak havoc for us in other aspects of our lives. You know, I know before in my past, I'd be very clingy. I'd stay in situations that wouldn't work for me. Why? Because I was scared of that Friday night when I was all alone and I felt like nobody loves me. Nobody loves me. And so what I've learned to do over the years working on myself is to learn to be with myself. You know, anybody here happy to go cinema by themselves? You know, for some of us, these are massive big deals. You know, because, you know, in so many ways, we're conditioned to believe that, you know, singlehood is a problem. So I'm here to tell you that, you know, embrace feeling lonely at times. because there is nothing worse than the despair of being in crowds of people and feeling exceptionally lonely. And I know I ain't the only one. Have you ever been in a relationship or with people, yet you felt so incredibly alone? I think that can be far, far worse. And actually, in terms of my own loneliness, and I was thinking about this week, I thought about, how proud I am of myself, that whilst I may struggle with loneliness, one thing I'm proud about is that I don't put myself in situations with people just to not feel lonely, because I think that's a different type of despair. Like just being with people, let's face it, that may well be called desperation, because we're desperate to avoid ourselves, because maybe there's aspects of yourself you don't want to explore, you don't want to be with yourself. What I often find really interesting is, sometimes we're so great, we can feel lonely. And what we may do is like be really grateful. For example, if you're in an intimate relationships, I'll always bang on about intimate relationships. I find them fascinating. And yet we fear being alone. So what happens is we cling to that relationship, we cling to that person because we fear being with ourselves. And whilst, I get it, sometimes, lockdown is also having a profound impact on so many of us. I think there is something really profound about, taking time out to be with yourself. How can you endeavor to embrace being alone? But the reality is, for some of us, we feel ashamed about being alone. We feel, there's so much pressure from society to be in relationship that in the end, we just stay because some of us stay because we're people pleasing. That's, and that's okay. That's a reality of life. However, when we start to look at things like our well-being, how we're feeling about ourselves, and if life is beginning to hurt, then I think, there is a massive benefit for us to start to consider, am I staying in these types of circles because it's safe? Yeah, because, if I think about my transition, for some of you who know my story, I'm coming from, transition, when you change, it can often result in a lot of relationship casualties. People may desire you to get back to being your old self. Like, can't you go back to being your old self? Which can often leave you and this is one of the reasons why, as a part of my Pain into Purpose course, I'm very clear with people about the importance of hand-holding. Because when you start to step outside of your comfort zone, what happens is some of your old relationships no longer serve you in the same way, especially if you start to change your personality. So if you stop being the yes person, if you stop doing certain things that you've often done, that people can be guaranteed that you'll definitely do X, Y, Z, and you begin to make yourself redundant from that role, some people will start to let go of you. And that can be very difficult. That can be very difficult because, for so many of us, we thought people would have been with us for the long haul. The reality is, when you start to change, there is a raft of unintended consequences. And this is what I endeavor to do for my clients, is to help handhold. At times we need handholding. You think I don't need handholding through some tricky life dilemmas? Nothing wrong with that, my peoples. Nothing wrong with that. We got to get over this thing that we think we can do it all by ourselves. It's often lunacy that leaves us thinking we can do it all by ourselves. You can't do it all by yourselves. I wouldn't be sitting here tonight if I thought I could have done it all by myself. So here we got some questions here. Hey Claire, hope you're doing well. Rizwana, most definitely. Leslie, being alone, only when you're comfortable with it, can be quite empowering to the person. Learning about yourself on another level. Rizwana, voice is everything. I get through loneliness. Self-love is the key. Yeah, and I think, I think loneliness is a very shaming topic. I know last week I put out on my Facebook page, I get lonely. Well, I think I feel so lonely. And I thought, a space to share some of the uncomfortable truths about life, that actually loneliness is a part of life. Let's not avoid it. Let's talk about that, but also some of us are absolutely petrified of being by ourselves, of being with ourselves. And if that's the case, then often what's going to happen is you're going to have a whole raft of people in and around you. And you may often be in situations that aren't working for you because potentially you may be scared of yourself. And if that is the truth, if that speaks to you, I'm here to tell you that you are not alone. We all battle. I battle with loneliness sometimes. I'm a very social person. And actually, one of the unintended consequences of when I left my job, you know, in a busy organization, was I spent a lot of time alone. I wasn't used to that. I was often used to being with, you know, lots of other people, dramas at work, another story. Yet when I came to my office, when I began to work for myself, I realized how alone it could be, how lonely and isolating it can be, which is why, you know, I put strategies in place to assist myself. But here we have lockdown. So many of us can be working online, that I think loneliness is a real deal. And I think, you know, if you need any coping strategies, please ask me. You know, please ask. I'm happy to share. Feel free to inbox me. Here we go. Claire, I'm doing well in lockdown. Almost 7 stones gone. Yes, Claire, send me some of those pictures. Be glad to hear. Naya, it's better to be alone than being lonely in a relationship. My sister Naina, I hear you. Karen White does a beautiful song called I Would Rather Be Alone Than Be Here Unhappy. And I think, you know, it's an interesting one, isn't it? You know, when I think about like school, even like friends, like I always wanted a whole tribe of people to go out with, especially in my younger years. I kind of always had like that one friend or 2 friends. But I would have loved to have always gone out in a whole herd. But that was never my reality. I kind of wished it would have been. But I think I'm one of those people that have a select few people around me. And I think, you know, for many of us, we really battle with loneliness. We really battle with not having that group of friends at the end of the line that we can just draw upon. Not everybody has that. And, you know, I think loneliness is all a part of the human experience. And I'm here to be articulate about that as messily, if that is a word. We can make up our own words. Tell my class all the time, I make up my own words. You know, that it's okay to experience that. It's okay to feel like, well, how come I don't have friends? Or how come I don't have any plans this weekend? You know, and I know for so many people, you know, our weekends can feel like they drag because you've got nothing in the diary. Let your girl Key know if you're one of those people that get anxious when you don't have anything in the diary. Some of us are avoiding being with ourselves. And if that's the case, then the reality is if you don't confront that, it may result in you staying in relationships just to avoid being with yourself. The reality is, you know what? You are all you got. You are all you got. So if you can't be with yourself, you're going to have some challenges in life because this is the vessel you're in. How can you learn to love yourself? Firstly, let's start with people talking about self-love, self-love, self-love. I think the reality is, how can we begin to practice self-like? Because some of us don't like ourselves. And for some of us, it's understandable we don't like ourselves because of the way that we were raised. We were raised in a way where we were made to feel that we weren't good enough. So it's okay that if you get into adulthood, you don't have self-love for yourself. If I was your therapist, you know, we're going to be helping you to understand what that's about for you, where that's come from. But what I want to do ultimately is to name that loneliness is a natural part of the human condition, and be careful about loneliness, because if you're trying to avoid loneliness, it will result in you having to be in people's company. Now, if you've got great people to be around, that's a beautiful thing. But if you ain't got great people to be around, it may mean that you put yourself in certain situations with certain people and it's not great for you. And that's a big challenge for people. So if you have any questions about your battles with loneliness, then feel free to ask me, because for a lot of us, we are pinning our hopes and our dreams on meeting the one. Because in the West, we've been conditioned to believe that in our intimate relationships, the one should fulfill all of our needs. And this belief that if we find the one, that our needs will be met is a myth. And it's one of the reasons why relationships are under immense strain, I believe, in modern times, because we expect all of our needs to be fulfilled by this singular person, and it is unrealistic. You know, what we want are healthy relationships where that person has their own identity, you have your own identity, and then you come together. Yeah, a lot of what are the issues in unhealthy relationships is people lose themselves and then they become enmeshed. We don't want to become enmeshed. You want to have your identity, so that you remain an individual. So, it's your girl Key. As you may or may not know, I'm a psychotherapist here in private practice. I help people when we're confused, baffled by life, and the way forward isn't clear. With the creative mind I have, I'm very good at helping people to get clarity about their situations. If it's a ball of mess, let's try and find some strands so that you get clear. Naina, you're so right. How we've been conditioned not to live ourselves and put ourselves first. We have to unlearn that. Yes, you are right. You know what, Naina, I could put a video here about the challenge in, with the Western concept of romance, having these unrealistic expectations that we expect to be fulfilled by somebody else. And often, my loneliness can result in me becoming distracted. And the reality is, there's so many distractions. We know that loneliness, let's just take social media, for example. It's a beautiful, well, you may disagree with the word beautiful, but it's a beautiful way to get distracted, isn't it? You just end up scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Next thing you know, 5 hours have gone and you're just ending up on an endless scroll. Even yesterday, I forgot my phone at my office and I just said to myself, just leave it, just leave it. So, that's one of the benefits. Sometimes we need to just leave the devices alone, and my encouragement to you is, if you are petrified of being with yourself, I'm here to tell you that, I can suffer with loneliness and it's okay to experience loneliness. It's what I do about it that is of the utmost importance. It may mean that I choose to stay with myself. It may mean, like yesterday, I felt loneliness. So I thought, you know what, let me go to Costco and get some bits that I've been meaning to go. So I distracted myself. At other times, it may mean like I need to get out into nature. I need to do a walk. I need to write. I do feel like I need to write. What I'm here to tell you is loneliness is absolutely normal and it's absolutely okay. But really be careful what your loneliness may drive you to do. If you are fearful of being with yourself, this then may result in you making choices to bring energies, people, certain situations around you, and it ain't great for you, but you would rather do that than to be with yourself. I'm here to tell you that learning to be with yourself is so important for you. It's important for the quality of your life, because you know what, at the end of the day, people will leave us for whatever reasons. People will come in and out of our lives, and learning how to be with self is so fundamental to your well-being. It's your girl, Keeley Taverner. I'm talking about the topics that most people don't really talk about, because we often all like to act like we all sorted and everything's okay. The reality is, a lot of us we're putting on a brave face and we're putting on a brave mask. And I'm here to say to you, it's okay to take your mask off from time to time with safe, trusted people. Let's take a look, see where you're at. And it's okay to be lonely. It's your girl Key. If anything I have said has resonated with you, if you would like to take this conversation further, feel free to inbox your girl Key. I am here to be of assistance and support to your people. Remember, do take care of you, because if you don't, no one is coming to save you. You have to learn to be your own best friend. And if you don't learn to be your own best friend, it's highly likely you'll become your own worst enemy. And I and you don't want that for yourself, Because listen, out there is treacherous and it's tricky, even worse now we're in lockdown. So it's about how can you assist you to live your life in a way where you take small, consistent steps to keep unlocking your genius, your creativity, because there's a genius inside you waiting for you to be discovered. So if lockdown has brought lots of mayhem to you, if you're not sure who you are, if your job, you've been made redundant and you're kind of like shocked, you're lost, I am a massive advocate of education. I'm a massive advocate of like small, short courses. Go to Google Open University free courses. Start something new. Try something online. Expand yourself. Say yes. What are the topics that you love? Find something. Do something. Because sitting there and thinking that some savior is going to come and rescue you, it ain't going to happen. And leaving yourself or going to the doctors and thinking the medication that is going to take away your depression is naive in my viewpoint. You need to be thinking about your life. You need to be thinking about your choices. And I would also encourage you to be thinking about detoxing your phone. Some of us need to have a decent phone audit. Some of us need to lock off people. Some of us need to delete some people. Some of us need to learn to be our own best friend, because often the greatest enemy is within. Remember, this is a life journey. There are no mistakes. There's just lessons and feedback. So don't be beating up on yourself as well. It's your girl, Keeley Taverner, psychotherapist at Key for Change. Do take care of you, because if you don't, no one's coming to save you. You have to learn to save yourself. And that's the uncomfortable truth. I told you. Take care.